ICU as machines beeped and monitors glowed. The next chapter of their intertwined story was about to unfold. And this time, dear reader, the truth would demand more than just acknowledgement. It would demand justice. The revelation came at 3 a.m., that hollow hour when hospital corridors echo with secrets and truth feels more fluid than solid. Timothy Lancaster sat in the ICU waiting room, poring over his grandmother's diaries by the harsh fluorescent light. His hands froze on a page dated December 1st, 1944. James didn't die in the fire. The fire was set to cover his murder. The words blurred before his eyes as he read on, learning how his great-grandfather, Charles Lancaster III, had discovered his daughter's relationship with James Williams. How he'd hired men to handle the situation. How the Coconut Grove fire, long attributed to faulty wiring, had been deliberately set after James was already dead. "Mr. Lancaster?" Destiny's voice cut through his horror. "Your mother's asking for you." He looked up, seeing his grandmother's musical hands in Destiny's elegant fingers, and made a decision that would change everything. "They murdered him," he said quietly. "Your grandfather, my family, they murdered him." The truth, once spoken, took on a life of its own. It raced through the hospital corridors like wildfire, burning away decades of carefully constructed lies. Margaret Lancaster, hearing her son's words through the open door, let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. "No," she gasped. "Daddy wouldn't, he couldn't." But he had. The diary entries were explicit, detailing not just the murder, but the subsequent cover-up. Charles Lancaster III had used his influence to ensure the fire was ruled an accident. The men he'd hired had been paid off and sent west. The family's reputation had remained intact. Until now. What happened next unfolded with the inevitability of a Greek tragedy. Destiny, her hands steady despite the tremors in her heart, called the police. Timothy handed over the diaries and letters. Reporters caught wind of the story, a tale of murder, racism, and generational secrets centered around one of Boston's most prominent families. But the true twist, dear reader, was yet to come. As investigators dug into the decades-old crime, they discovered something that even Rose Lancaster hadn't known. James Williams hadn't died alone that night. Another musician, Thomas Johnson, had